Hey folks, Steve here, and welcome to a video that is not a Project Hestia devlog. So this weekend, I did something a little bit different and worked on a game jam called Ludum Dare. So this is the 48th Ludum Dare, and this is my first ever game jam. And I decided to create a game in 48 hours from scratch using Unity. Don't worry, I am still working on Project Hestia. I'm currently working on the research system, which is taking a little bit of time. So I'll have a devlog of that next on the weekend, hopefully. But also, for now, then I'll tell you a bit about Ludum Dare, and I'll tell you also a bit how my game went. There'll be a link to the game that I made in the description, so you can play it. Also, there'll be a link to the source code, so you can download the source code, you can play with it, and you can see how my terrible code is, or use it in your own games. So Ludum Dare is a game jam that is based around creating your own game from scratch. So if you're doing the compo, which is what I did, then you have to start with nothing, you have to build the art, you have to build gameplay, programming, you have to do the sounds, you have to do the music, add all the juice, all the things. And so it was quite a nice little challenge for me to see how well I've actually learned Unity, so how quickly I can do things. Each jam has a theme, and the theme for this one was Deeper and Deeper. So they actually came out with the theme about 3 a.m. on Saturday, and I was actually awake because I wasn't sleeping very well, so I actually was awake while that came out, and then managed to get back to sleep and woke up the next day with lots of ideas going through my head. So I was playing around with different ideas like mining or going down in the water, and I searched on Pinterest for different ideas, and also on Pinterest lots of things came up, which is deep and meaningful questions, or deep, like that was the lists of questions that you had on Pinterest. And I decided to make a game where you were a little submarine, and you were finding little bottles that contained questions, and each question would be a meaningful question, a deep question for you to think about. So on the first level, it's the surface level, so you have a surface level question, how are you? And then as you go down, you have more and more deep questions, like what is the meaning of life and that kind of stuff, but like better questions. So I actually found questions from, there's like 32 questions to fall in love with someone that you can search for, which is a bunch of great questions, and I put those in the game. So I started out by, once I had the idea and the concept, I started out by jumping in Unity, putting a bunch of cubes in and kind of white boxing it. So I had one cube for the submarine, one cube for fish, one cube for obstacles, which I had little sharks that you have to avoid, and then one cube for the water. And that was actually most of the initial development was spent in this cube world, putting colliders on things and making sure that the basic gameplay and the little gameplay loop was nice and tight, or like as tight as I could get it within 48 hours, which is amazingly not that tight. So I at least had gameplay and you could call it a game. So being that this was my first game jam, actually having a game by the end of it was my main goal. Having it being fun, interesting, all these other things was less of a goal of mine. In retrospect, I wish I'd put more time into it and made it more fun, but I'm also glad that I managed to achieve my goal of having something out there, putting it into the competition. I'm actually having quite what I consider quite a fairly nicely polished game at the end of it. After I blocked the gameplay out and put the basic gameplay in, I added UX like the start screen and the like game over screen, victory screen, level select screen, that kind of thing, all using Unity's UI toolkit, so quite a new thing, but I really like the way that works, and it was quite easy to get things up and going. I also added it so that one of the concepts I had is that when you would complete a level, you'd go down deeper and deeper into the level, down into the water. So this corresponded by the world getting darker and darker and darker. I actually used some of the techniques that I had used in Project Hestia for that. So the day-night cycle, I reused the concept of it. So every time you go down a level, each level is on a gradient of how light. So I had a scriptable object with a gradient in it, and which level you're at is which part of the gradient you're at. And so as you go down, the ambient light goes darker, the directional light goes darker, and also I changed the directional light intensity down as well. So changing those three things as you go down and down. And I also added a little light onto the front of the submarine so that you could at least see where you're going, and it adds an extra level of challenge because it gets harder and harder to see things as you go down. So that was all on the first day, and another thing that I did on the first day was I decided to make sure that I could actually publish everything. So I did an export, so it's a WebGL build, just exporting from Unity, uploading to itch.io, and that worked really well. So I managed to get gameplay all playing up in the browser, so I knew that if everything went wrong on the second day, I could still submit something, and it was complete. So that was pretty much focusing on the creating something complete, which meant the second day I woke up and I could add more levels. So at the beginning I was just playing the surface level and the level below. I added 11 levels in the end, so 10 plus the surface level, each with different questions. So there's one basic question and then 10 more meaningful questions. And then I also added 3D models, so jumped into Blender. Before I jumped into Blender, I went to Pinterest again, searched for submarines and fish, tried to find different ones. I found like a few different cute things, so little sharks, little fish, and a cute little submarine, which I completely stole, and then jumped into Blender and started mucking up that. I actually had one go with creating a submarine just from my brain, and that was shockingly bad, and I was just like, that was terrible. So creating something from Pinterest, like reference, was definitely a lot better. So I have these little grabby claws so it can grab stuff. And I was really happy with the 3D models that came up. I just wish I'd added more of them. I think it was great for me to keep the scope of the game really basic, but like afterwards I'm like, I wish I'd added 10 more models, or added more juice, or more this, and pick-ups and power-ups, and so I'm glad that I managed to achieve my goal. And scope creep would have prevented me from achieving that, but also at the same time I also wish I had added more. So yeah, I had 3D models. You could pick up the little bottle, so when you collect the fish, then you see a little bottle appear, and you collect that, and then it displays the message. And yeah, that was it. So I polished a few more things, added a little like jet stream that comes out the back using a line renderer. I also tried adding a particle system before realizing that I'm terrible at the particle system and would need to watch an entire YouTube tutorial and then play around with it for quite a while before figuring out how to do it. So that got scrapped. The sound was like there's a like a MIDI sound generator you can use called SXF something. I'll post a link to that in the description. So the sounds were from that. So when you collect something, there's a little sound. There's a game over sound, so little bits. I also tried creating a music track in Bosco Soil. Again, I'll post a link to the Bosco Soil. I have no idea how that's pronounced. It's it looks like a Welsh word. I have no idea what it is. But that's a really nice place where you can generate little MIDI chip tunes. Again, I have a complete lack of knowledge of that, so I created something super basic and added that to the game. And I hid the bad sounds behind 2 mute buttons. So by default, the music is off unless somebody wants to click it. So technically I've got music, but not really. That's pretty much everything. I'm gonna show a little bit of gameplay off at the end of this video. I'll put some little music over it, but that's not the in-game music, because the in-game music will make your ears bleed out the side of your head. And yeah, thanks for watching. So I'll have a Project Hestia devlog video coming up soon. And thanks once again. Goodbye.